To finish our masks, we're going to use watercolor paints. So you're going to help yourself to a paint palette and take that to your table. You're going to want a couple of other things, which I've already got assembled here. When you open it up, you'll find that there is a paintbrush inside, unless somebody lost it already, in which case get yourself a different paintbrush. And there are the basic colors. These tiles here have been bisque fired, and they are just plain clay that has been bisque fired. I've also got a little dish that has water in it that I started using, as well as this just Tupperware lid, which I'm using as a paint palette that I'm mixing on. To use watercolors in general, these are just dried little palettes of color. You come over, you get a little bit of water, you put that water on the color, and if you want a thick, rich version of the color, you go straight to applying on your piece. You do not need to fire watercolor, and it will look as it does when it dries. You can layer it up, but once you've applied it, it's not going to be coming off. If you want to apply multiple colors on top of each other, all you need to do is rinse out your brush and add water to your next color. If you want to thin a color, I recommend coming over onto a Tupperware or other source and just adding a bunch of water. And that's going to enable you to get kind of a washy, thinner color. Okay, so I just dumped a little bit of water on there, and then I'm just mixing that green in. And it's very thin, and that's going to have a different look and be much more subtle. Very, very subtle green appearing there than it was if I did more of a pure color. You see here, there's an indentation in my tile, and that's where the color is kind of settling. It's going to be a very different effect if I add more pigment to my little water. Okay, that's going to be quite a bit thicker, quite a bit more pronounced. And if I come back and I just go straight color, it's going to be very pigmented. So there are options when you're working with watercolor. Okay, for this piece, you do not need to use a realistic color palette. You can choose whatever color palette you would like. If you're trying to mix a flesh tone, most flesh tones are going to involve using a few different colors. The brown is here, and that might be the basis for most of the skin colors that you're going to choose. There's yellow here, and there is red here, and there is blue here, believe it or not. Sometimes that comes in as a factor. If you're going to want a very bold, rich color, you could go in and apply a color rather thickly. If you want it to be subtle, you can do what I did and blend it with a lot of water, and that's going to make it a more subtle version. As you layer it up, it will continue to build up, but you can also tell here that when you add a second wash, like, you can tell where the edges of your mark making were when you're applying the paintbrush. So keep in mind that that's a factor. Also keep in mind that once you've applied watercolor and it's like dried, you can re-wet it and still kind of move it around. So if I wanted to come in and richen this up, I can always build on top, but I'm not going to be really removing, as it were. Okay, when I am done, I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to wash it out very thoroughly. I'd ideally do this at the sink. Okay, I'm going to take a paper towel and I'm going to dry it. And I'm going to place it back in my kit. I'm going to close my kit and put that faithfully back where it goes. I am not going to keep that on my personal shelf. It is not my personal supply. Okay. And then you're going to take pictures of your face mask with watercolor on it. Only after it is fully dry should it go inside the photo booth, because this can still rub off at this point. This gets rinsed and tossed, And that, of course, gets rinsed out as well. All right, so good luck with your watercolor on your masks.